Stern has become such a wussified sycophant, he doesn't realize that telling Kamala that he'd vote for a wall is telling her that he knows she's as dumb as one. I mean, not to mention Trump is the wall candidate, not Cackle's McKnee pads. Stern got even more pathetic, wondering how she doesn't nap.
That brings me to Howard Stern and his interview of Kamala Harris, where he put the cards on the table about how he was feeling, in particular about her latest media tour, which did not include Saturday Night Live, but she was lampooned on it a little. A lampoon may be too strong, but she was mocked, as they usually do, just to Republicans. Take a listen.
Howard Stern, the self-proclaimed king of all media, once built an empire by tearing down the establishment. He was the grenade in a sterile room, a cultural arsonist who made government censors sweat and Hollywood celebrities tremble. For decades, his voice was a weapon, his show a battlefield, and his audience an army of outsiders who finally had a general leading them against the polished, hypocritical world of the mainstream. But the king is gone, seemingly vanished from his own throne, replaced by a man who seems terrified of the very world he helped create, a nervous ghost whispering into a golden microphone. The most dangerous man in radio has become a timid sycophant, and the story of his shocking fall from grace is more bizarre and revealing than any stunt he ever pulled on air. The revolution he started didn't just end, it was betrayed by its own leader, who quietly surrendered his crown for a comfortable seat amongst the very royalty he once vowed to overthrow.
This is what keeps me up at night. I don't understand how my fellow Americans, I don't even understand how this election is close. And yes, I'm voting for you, but I would also vote for that wall over there. When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, like, when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country. Even when I watch them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you, I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of.
Period, while listening to it. You should hear what keeps him up at night.
It all came to a head during a now infamous interview with Vice President Kamala Harris, a broadcast that served as the final, undeniable proof of his complete metamorphosis. This wasn't the Stern of old, the merciless interrogator who would have skinned a politician alive with pointed questions and brutal mockery. This was a different creature entirely, a fawning, anxious host desperate for approval from the powerful. He confessed to Harris that he was really nervous because he wanted the interview to go well for you, a statement so stunningly obsequious it would have made the 90s era Stern vomit. He then delivered the killing blow to his own legacy. Stern, the man who built his career on the sacred principle that no one, absolutely no one, was safe from ridicule, admitted he couldn't stand seeing Harris get lampooned on Saturday Night Live. I hate it, he whimpered into the mic. I don't want you being made fun of. He claimed there was too much at stake to joke about her candidacy. In that single moment, the rebel who once mocked everyone, presidents, popes, and his own parents, was now building a protective wall around a powerful politician, shielding her from the very thing that made him famous, jokes. It was a verbal foot rub so gentle, so pathetic it felt like a total surrender. A man who once threw bologna at strippers now worried the potential leader of the free world couldn't handle a gentle ribbing.
She also appeared on Howard Stern, where he said he'd even vote for a wall over Trump. Harris replied, I'm not a wall, but I am plastered. But it is incredibly brave to take this stance after you've made $300, $400 million not being woke, right? Loving Donald Trump, exploiting the mentally ill, wearing blackface. Look at the crop of woke comics, whether it's Stern or Jimmy Kimmel, his BFF, Sarah Silverman, Joy Behar, Michael Ian Black. What do they all have in common? They wore blackface. And then they went woke. It's not a chicken or egg thing there. You know what order it came. Now remember, Stern used to throw bologna slices at strippers' butts. With accuracy, I might add. Now he's worried the possible leader of the free world can't handle his verbal foot rub. I wonder if he used to get this nervous for the strippers before he'd spank them on their bare asses with a dead fish.
To understand just how staggering this reversal is, you have to summon the ghost of the man he used to be. The old Howard Stern was a force of nature, a cultural phenomenon who operated without a filter, a conscience, or a single DMN to give. Listening to his show felt dangerous and exhilarating, like you were part of a secret club that was gleefully breaking every rule. He baited the Federal Communications Commission into millions of dollars in fines, wearing each penalty like a badge of honor. He wasn't just pushing the envelope, he was setting it on fire, dousing it in lighter fluid, and launching it at the FCC headquarters. This was the man who unleashed Fartman at the MTV Video Music Awards, a grotesque superhero personifying his entire ethos. He presided over a carnival of human chaos, from lesbian dial-a-date to a parade of his whack pack members, a cast of societal outcasts he turned into legends. His brand was unfiltered, unafraid, and brutally, often cruelly, honest. He was the ultimate outsider, the voice for every misfit and malcontent who felt alienated by a polished, polite society. But that was before he was offered the ultimate insider's payday, a deal so massive it seemed to buy his very soul and neuter his rebellious spirit in one fell swoop.
Okay, I hope you had a good week. I did, and no thanks to Howard Stern. True, the New York Post reported that Stern hit a chic restaurant in NYC with a crew of A-listers, including Jimmy Kimmel, Jennifer Aniston, Jon Hamm, Justin Theroux, Jason Bateman. I was not invited. I guess because my first name doesn't begin with the letter J.
There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now, I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's literally on the line.
I agree with you.
And when I see them, how did you react to this Saturday Night Live bit?
Stern on anyone daring to poke a little fun at Kamala.
Even when I watch them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you, I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of.
Oh my God.
There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now, I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's literally on the line.
So a guy who's supposed to be funny for a living now claims her candidacy is too important to joke about.
The definitive turning point for many was his move to Sirius XM satellite radio in 2006. With a contract worth a staggering $500 million, the golden handcuffs were snapped firmly shut. On the surface, it was a dream come true. Total freedom from the FCC and the censors who had hounded him for years. But this freedom came at a steep and ironic price. A warrior without an enemy is just a man with a weapon. And without the FCC to fight, Stern's primary antagonist was gone. He was no longer the underdog battling the system. He was a cornerstone of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, a paid attraction in a gilded cage. He was no longer on public airwaves, beholden to the truck drivers and construction workers who made him a star. He was behind an expensive paywall, speaking to a self-selected, affluent audience. The raw, rebellious energy that defined him began to dissipate, replaced by a comfortable, self-satisfied tone. The anger was replaced with therapy talk, the stunts with long, introspective interviews about his growth, and the rebellion with a quiet, carefully curated version of himself, polished for a new, more sophisticated audience. The financial freedom paradoxically led to a creative and spiritual imprisonment, trapping him in a bubble of his own making.
Well, I just saw it, actually, and it was funny. I am a huge fan of Maya Rudolph. I think she put a lot of time into doing the piece and the character.
Okay, so I do think it's interesting. He's very scared. A lot of I hear this from a lot of my Democrat friends. They're scared of Trump winning again. They're scared of Trump.
Nothing in Stern's previous career that could withstand this modern witch hunt that he now embraces. So this is a form of restitution. Maybe he says, if I'm woke too, the crocodile will eat me last, but they always do eat. But I get it. He flipped from populist to elitist because now he's with elitists. He's living in the Hamptons. What would the Stern of now think of the Stern of before?
But his transformation wasn't just about money. It was about covering his tracks. As critics like Greg Gutfeld have ruthlessly pointed out, there's a dark hypocrisy lurking beneath the surface of today's enlightened Howard Stern. He, along with many of his new comedian friends like Jimmy Kimmel and Sarah Silverman, have a troubling skeleton in their closet. They all wore blackface. Stern's infamous participation in a Ted Danson roast is a permanent stain on his record, a piece of his past so toxic it could shatter his new image. This inconvenient fact makes their sudden, aggressive pivot to woke righteousness feel less less like genuine growth and more like a desperate act of public penance. It's as if they believe that by becoming the loudest voices for the new morality, the mob will forget their past sins. This theory suggests Stern's new persona is a strategic shield. He saw the modern witch hunt coming for figures with pasts like his and decided to join the hunters to avoid being hunted himself. It's the crocodile will eat me last defense, a preemptive surrender to cancel culture to protect his massive fortune and carefully constructed legacy from the wreckage of his own past actions. It's a form of self-preservation born from a bottomless hatred for himself and his past, an attempt to kill the man he once was before anyone else could. This new identity required a brand new social circle. To complete his metamorphosis, Stern systematically traded in his infamous Whack Pack, a collection of societal outcasts he once championed, for the A-list pack. His old friends were Beetlejuice, Hank the angry drunken dwarf, and Eric the actor, real-life misfits to whom he gave a voice and a strange kind of dignity. He seemed to genuinely care for these broken characters, making him feel like an authentic man of the people. But the Whack Pack was slowly phased out, their chaotic energy deemed incompatible with the new sophisticated Howard. They were replaced by a far more glamorous entourage. His new friends weren't society's forgotten. They were Jennifer Aniston, Jimmy Kimmel, John Hamm, and Justin Theroux. He went from broadcasting from the fringes to hosting chic dinner parties in his Hamptons mansion. He was no longer the voice of the common man. He was a pampered elitist, lecturing the very audience that made him a star from behind the fortified walls of his coastal estate. He didn't just join the elite, he became their cheerleader, praising their work with the same passion he once used to tear them down. He was a punk rocker who opened a spa.
Right after the Columbine massacre that the killers should have raped the students before killing them. Not that I like that Stern, but this pendulum swing from saying the most tasteless thing in the universe to putting your balls in a Tic Tac container. You gotta wonder what's going on here. It's striking that the king of the most misogynistic humor ever now turns into a breathless over a progressive, hopelessly shallow candidate. This is Stern's self-imposed penance for subjugating women to demoralizing stunts, capitalizing on desperate females thirsting for attention, even if it's from an oily paddle striking their bare asses. True, much of Stern's transformation is based mainly on a delusional hatred for Trump, but it's also coming from a bottomless hatred for himself and his past. Howard's simply redefining masculinity. And why is it always the male lefties who are so desperate to get rid of masculinity entirely? It's guilt and self-preservation. Because scrape beneath the surface of any liberal male, and what do you find? A creep, terrified of his priggish past. Piggish past, I mean, not priggish. What is priggish?
Perhaps the most glaring betrayal for his original loyal fan base was the Great Trump Paradox. For decades, Donald Trump was one of Stern's favorite and most frequent guests. Their on-air relationship was a symbiotic circus of provocation, a masterclass in headline-grabbing radio. Stern would ask Trump outrageously inappropriate questions about his life, his money, and women, and Trump would gleefully play along, boasting and bragging in a way that only Stern could elicit. They were partners in shock value, two renegades from Queens who understood the power of a brand. But as soon as Trump became a political threat to Stern's new Hollywood friends, he turned on him with a personal vitriolic hatred that stunned everyone. The man he had once enabled and laughed with for hundreds of hours was now his ultimate nemesis, and his supporters were dismissed as morons and imbeciles. For many listeners, this wasn't a principled stand. It was a political calculation. It was the final brutal test of his loyalty. He had to choose between his old audience and his new social class. He chose his Hamptons dinner guests without a moment's hesitation, torching a decades-long relationship to prove his allegiance to his new tribe. The final nail in the coffin of the old Howard Stern was his complete transformation into the king of all scolds. The man who once fought censorship at every turn now seemed to champion it with a terrifying zeal. During the pandemic, he launched into furious, profanity-laced tirades against anyone who questioned the official narrative. He screamed that those who were unvaccinated should be denied hospital beds and left to die. The former libertarian rebel who defended the rights of the KKK to speak was now a foaming at the mouth authoritarian. authoritarian, demanding that those who disagreed with his worldview be silenced, punished, and ostracized. The irony was devastating. The pioneer of free speech had become just another gatekeeper, terrified of anyone stepping out of the very lines he spent a lifetime erasing. He was no longer a lion roaring against the establishment. He was, as Megyn Kelly described him, a declawed house cat, purring for approval from the very people he used to call toxic. The pendulum had swung from the most tasteless man in the universe to a man who put his own masculinity in a lockbox. So what is the truth behind Howard Stern's monumental fall? Is it a genuine evolution, a man who grew up and realized the error of his ways? Or is it something far more cynical and pathetic? Is it a calculated rebranding, a desperate attempt to launder a toxic legacy and find acceptance among the Hollywood elite he once despised? Many believe it's a transformation born not of wisdom, but of deep, gnawing fear. Fear of being canceled, fear of his own past, and most of all, fear of becoming irrelevant. The tragedy isn't that Howard Stern changed. It's that the man who built a kingdom on being brutally, unapologetically honest may have become the biggest phony of them all. The king hasn't just left the building, he's torn it down and replaced it with a velvet-lined, soundproof echo chamber, where the only voice he hears is his own, admiring his reflection in a space he once vowed to destroy. The shock jock who once defined an era has become a ghost, a cautionary tale of what happens when a rebel sells his soul for a seat at the table he once promised to flip over for fun. And the silence from his old, forgotten army of fans is now louder than anything he could ever scream into a microphone.